Well, good morning, everybody. I know people are starting to file in, so I appreciate your time. This 11 o'clock hour in the strange series of convocations via Zoom, but we're doing the best that we can in this virtual COVID world. And I'm really excited today to have one of our own. Dr. Gulley is with us today, and Sister Bernie, who I'm just getting to meet at this moment. So glad you could be with us, Sister Bernie. Um,
Thank-
and they're going to talk about their book, which congratulations on the book, but really a lifetime of service. That's really what it's all about. But the book is Better for Being with You, describes Sister Bernie's life. And they describe her as a visionary, establishing a mobile health unit and being a tireless advocate for the advancement of healthcare delivery in rural Appalachia, but really all over the globe. And of course, Dr. Gulley is a professor of nursing and just a model of what it looks like to be a servant and a professor who deeply cares for our students. We are better because you're here. So, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Rob, thank you. I just feel blessed to be here, and it's a wonderful place, and I've just worked in so many great places, and I just feel like this is where I fit. Um, I've told Bernie before that, I mean, it's not like coming to work. It's just coming and, you know, being with my friends, and but we are productive. We'll say that. Mary, I think you'll agree. We are productive.
I we are
We are productive. So I do not see any students on here. Do we have just the six of us? Okay, no students. So we were we had a little outline here that we were kind of going to go by, but I don't guess we need to since we do not have students. Um, I think everybody knows who I am, professor of nursing here at the University of Pikeville. Prior to coming here, I was at the University of Virginia's College at Wise. I've served on a lot of committees here. One of them is the Global Health Committee. I did a lot of work in Belize for several years. Global health is certainly important to me, as I know it is to Bernie. Um, Prior to that, well, I've been a nurse since 1992, so that's 28 years. And I've known Bernie for all that time. I had my first child in 92, and Bernie was at her first birthday party, so that's been a long time to know each other, And over the years, I would talk to Bernie. I'd say, Bernie, how's it going? You really need to write your story. And, you know, I'm working on it, she would say. I'm working on it. So finally, a few years ago, I just kind of cornered her and said, now, Bernie, let's do it. And still, she wouldn't even agree until after several meetings and several conversations that were put in writing. But then she finally did agree, and we were able to put her story in words. And I'm thankful that we did, because I feel like her story was one that needed to be told. So that's just a little bit about me. I've been in Southwest Virginia my entire life, nearly. I have three grown daughters. I've been married for 28 years, and I've been a nurse 28 years. And I guess that's really all about me, unless Bernie knows anything else to tell.
I won't tell all. That would be too much. We've had a lot of fun, and I encourage everybody to write about their journey, because in order to put it out there, you have to reflect and do a lot of internal work. And it's never one person alone who gets things done. It's together we do things. When we're able to leave ourselves and be open to another and be a partner, we're able to accomplish so much more. And that's why division is a no-no in politics and in healthcare. So my road has been bumpy at times. I've been to the White House advocating for health care. And my belief is that health care is a right for everybody. And when we have a healthy nation, we are truly blessed. Health is something that influences everybody's well-being, how they think, how they act, and we all can make it either better or worse for ourselves and for others. And one of the ways of doing it for ourselves is self-care. And during COVID, that's been a challenge because we have time on our hands, but we don't always know how to make it work the best. We fritter away and overeat and lay around, but there is an opportunity to reflect, to ask ourselves the questions that make a difference. And when we do that work, we're much better. Uh, I've been in Ethiopia for 5 years and started a maternal child program there. I'm from Boston and I had never been on a horse. And I thought I loved animals. But when I got off that horse, I had bunches of hair that I had pulled out of its mane. And I was so shook up internally, I was useless. So we get to journey in new ways. In Tanzania, I was in a nurse's training school where the students were taught through the third language, and there were always difficulties in the language. I was heard to say to a gentleman, how many months are you along in your pregnancy? The difference was Fimbo and Bimbo. And nobody laughed. They were gracious enough, but I was so embarrassed afterwards. We have to be willing to make mistakes, to try the language. And culture is the water around us. Is it choppy or is it calm? Do we need to stir it up more? So being aware is what it's about, knowing what's going on with the local community. And Tanya really works at that. We share with each other a lot. And that's these days of political unrest, we have to not just agitate people, but spend time, have an intention of understanding where they're coming from, whoever they may be. And that enriches us. And going back to our intention, we're coming up to Thanksgiving where conversations go on that can be pretty hot and heavy. And young people can say, I just want to see that person get going. That's not necessarily fruitful for anybody. And to learn ourselves, where is this person coming from? What is the thing that in their mind that drives them? So I think I've said enough. I open it to other people in the conversation. To have a conversation means more than one person speaks.
Bernie, I'll say one of the things that's been real important for you and I both, we've always stayed positive and, you know, tried to focus on the positive and the other person's point of view. And I thought it was so interesting. Bernie and I, a couple of weeks ago, Bernie's part of the Medical Missionaries of Mary, which is religious group of women, and they were having a party, a Zoom party. And some of their members were quarantined because they had positive COVID or had been exposed to COVID, but they were saying they were cocooning. That was their word. They're cocooning. And I said, Bernie, what is cocooning? And she said, it's quarantine, not cocoon, not quarantine, it's cocooning. So that has a little bit more positive connotation to it than quarantine.
Sister Bernie, I have a question for you. You talked a lot about the ability to be aware and to be reflective, but your life also has a balance of being really, really busy. You talked about being these places around the world and going to the White House and being an advocate. And so often that's a really difficult balance to be reflective, but also to be forward in your action. What words do you have about cultivating that inner reflection in the midst of activism?
I think having the intention of being reflective puts us in a different position rather than just pushing our own agenda, being willing to accept where the other person is coming from. That's why our book is titled Being With You. I'm better for being with you. And I truly believe that. And it's something when folks say, how are you? I'll always say, I'm better for being with you. And that sets it off on a different platform that the person feels acknowledged and we're better together than just by ourselves. And breathing. I can't breathe has been the quote for this year. Well, when we take a breath to do it consciously, it makes a big difference. And COVID is about breath. The people end up on ventilators and without their breath. In the scripture, breath is life. And we are told, I have come that you may have life, life in its fullness. I believe in the fullness of life, being able to dance and sing and enjoy, not just push pills as the provider. And been known on a Winnebago bus to shuffle, stamp, and rock the whole bus. In the book, we've included reflection questions. Yes. Somebody has a question?
I'm sorry, I think there was just a little lull there. But I wanted to mention something I learned when I was living in Atlanta, and I was working with the most diverse group of people I'd ever worked with before. And if something was going on that they couldn't attend or that they would want to participate in, but they weren't able to, they would ask if we could hold space for them at that event or at that table. Could you hold space for me? Or could you, and I took that to mean, please let me be there with you, even though I physically can't be there with you. And that was something I had to learn to do. So I had to admit that sometimes I would say absolutely yes, and then I will forget, to consciously remember them. And I would then have to confess to that, but it's almost like a learned thing that you're holding the spirit of them where you are, and that's meaningful. So I think
What
that's
a
just really
valuable
beautiful.
insight. It is beautiful and it's enriching. Thank you.
Jennifer, did you find that you would, as you sort of, that became part of your, of yourself, did you find yourself saying after a while to someone else, if you couldn't be there, hold space for you? Did you find that
You know,
became part of you?
I'm not there yet because I feel like people who tend to be underrepresented who asked that. And so that's sort of my frame of reference for this. It feels so far to me like a co-optation if I were to ask it of others. But I think that's probably also going to be important. Once I figure that out.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Thank you for that.
How often we are physically present, but not really truly present. So if we're trying to hold space for even ourselves, what a valuable thing to do.
Well, I have another question, sister, about the idea of, in your role well, in your faith, of seeing God in all people and the way that you serve. Maybe you share with us a story about where you saw God's face in one of the persons that you were serving.
I truly feel blessed. I've been helping a family with virtual learning. They're 5, 6, and 7 years old, the kids are. And I had to leave early one day to go to the doctor. And the youngest one said, I hope you don't get a shot. And the next one says, don't take Rona. And the final one said, good luck. Well, they were blessing me in a way, in their own way, on the journey. And that's been, it's not like in the movies you see the face of Jesus and there's the light around and all the glamour. This was kids being honest. It was the first thing that came to my mind in your question.
Thank you.
Bernie, if I could share a reflective piece on that, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
Your- when Bernie first came to our area several 40 years ago, she helped with home births. There were a couple of ladies who wanted to deliver at home and asked her for her help in that with home birth delivery. And I became friends with one of the children's parents a couple of years ago. And the child that Bernie helped deliver had not seen Bernie in years. And she's probably I'm talking about Maria.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she's in her 20s, maybe close to 30. And I said, Maria, we're coming to this restaurant tonight. I said, Bernie and I will be there. I said, why don't you come? I said, it will be a nice surprise. I said, I know you haven't seen each other in 20 plus years. So we were at the restaurant. I was there. Bernie was there. My husband was there. And I saw Maria before she saw me. And Bernie was walking around this table, and here come Maria. They were both walking around the table, and they kind of met each other at the middle part between the table and the door. And Maria's hand was on Bernie's arm, and they looked at each other, and I thought, oh my goodness, they recognize each other. And Maria had not seen Bernie. I know she had not seen you in more than 20 years, had to be. And
No,
Bernie's mouth just flew open. She said, Maria. So to me, I mean, that just sent chills up my arms. I'm thinking, you delivered this child how many years ago, and now you're seeing each other and just kind of, so that was very exciting for me. And it was, put you in a very warm place.
I have a question for Bernie and Tanya as well. So one of the aspects during COVID and a pandemic and stressful times that I know are probably not a priority for people, but it should be, especially leaders, is self-care. Talk a little bit about how you both or one of you would recommend, and how do we leave space in lives that are busy with family and work and community obligations to do that? And what does that mean for people?
that's a hard question. One of the things that I find, I don't exercise as much as I would like to. And if I can make it routine without saying, oh, now I'm going to exercise, that never happens. If I do it automatically when I get out of the shower, just do it. Do it, damn it, do it. Before I get into the routine of the day, make it a part of the routine of getting clean and getting stretched at the same time. As we grow older, we got to stretch more and use the joints we don't normally use. And if you can find a pattern that works for you, it's not always easy, and to forgive yourself if you don't do it. There's no point in beating up about missing things. We can do it now. We can do it before we go to bed. There's always another opportunity. But exercise and stretching gets the stress out of our bodies, and that's what it's about. And I see somebody shaking their shoulders and twisting, especially when we have to spend a lot of time sitting. We all have special ways we sit, and we need to shift them, shift the weight. And giving ourselves a break is very important too.
Shift the weight, make sure you breathe and take breaks. I love that exercise plan. That would really work for me. Shift, breathe, break.
That's simple and easy.
Sure beats the treadmill, right?
Yeah.
Bernie does some, what is that exercise you do, Bernie? Tai Chi?
Tai Chi, yes. I learned a thing, it's called capacitar, everybody to the fullness of being. It doesn't mean you can do 20 reps. You just do what you can do and increase it a little bit each day. And there's a routine about it. And it's based on Tai Chi, Qigong also. Qigong is easier and more flexible than Tai Chi. The Chinese have a great grasp on how to be with each other and how to be with yourself. That's the bottom line.
I have a question about your sense of call and, as you've been around the world, so many people come to Central Appalachia, to our area, have great ambitions and hopes, and, a complexity of reasons why they come. But my question is, you have stayed many years here. What has kept you in service to our region?
I think it's feeling one with the folks. There's not so many barriers as there are in the third world. We share a lot of the same upbringing and roots. And when we are able to share the beginnings with families, we get in on the ground floor, and that makes a big difference. I'm seeing third and fourth generations of families that I know, and they also know me, which helps. In the cities and in big places, we're not able to, it's like a pebble in the pond. You make whirlpools around, but they don't go out as far. When the pond is smaller, you have more influence. Not that we live for influence, but it is a two-way street. What we feel, when we feel nurtured, we want to stay too.
Thank you.
I continue to be, excuse me, a little genuinely surprised. I think I live over by Hardy, over by Belfry and Williamson, and lived over that way. And when I used to work, I guess, or employed, or just in general, but I know coming over this way to U Pike, more than 20 years, I am genuinely surprised when we're over here in Pikeville, whether I'm over by myself or with someone else or Glenn, or the number of people that either recognize or stop and talk, and it'll feel like old home week. And I truly get surprised by that each time. Going in, I'll say I connected more here, and I don't mean just here exactly, but in the community, and I forget the number of connections and over the years, and just from being there, and what a good sense that is, just of like a home, where it's I think just from having spent time, and you don't realize, maybe what I'm trying to say is, don't realize the number of connections that you do make over time. And I think that contrast sometimes is what sort of brings it up to face at times. And it's a good feeling.
During COVID, many of the connections have been fractured, and we miss that support, of gathering and of having a potluck supper or something like that. And it's hard to figure out, because COVID isn't going to go away. We're going to be isolated or quarantined or cocooned into 2021. And I think we need to develop more ways of being connected with one another, holding a space for one another. What do you think? What does anybody think? Has anybody found something that works in their bubble?
Bernie, I think you ask a really important and critical question. I think there are challenges and opportunities in all of this. I was actually talking to my own family about that this weekend. I think it's brought people in my bubble closer together and an opportunity to really spend time in ways that we haven't been able to or taken the time to in the past. It has distanced us physically from people that we also like to spend time with, and yet because of the pandemic just are not able to. I truly believe that humans were made and created to spend time with each other in closer proximity. So I think about athletes that really get a pat on the back from their coach when you do a good job, or those things that we've done physically, right, appropriately. And that's not happening, and how that impacts everyone from a student athlete who knows whether they're doing a good job or not, to colleagues and friends and loved ones that aren't living with you in your bubble. And that's been hard. That's been really hard. I'm not sure I have an answer for you, Bernie, except yes, the people I love and live with is wonderful. They also drive you nuts in some ways, right? But it's great to be
Yeah.
with them. Rob, I know you've got kiddos too in the house, which it's like wonderful relationship and sometimes a little too much, and you wish you had some relief. But it's been a challenge, I think. And Zoom only does so much, in my opinion. I was reading some research on just the impact of Zoom and what it does or what it hasn't done. But I think it's been adequate to some extent, and I think people are growing tired of it as well.
It just whets our appetite for more intimacy, and especially our people in nursing homes and the staff who are working in nursing homes. Their burnout rate has to be so incredible. They have to be the whole family, the professional, and the maintenance people all at once. They're the heroes in my book.
The other day, I made a confession to a friend about something I've gotten into the habit of doing. I think it's a way of taking care of the more introverted side of me, and also the very political side of me, which is when I leave work and sometimes it's late and after dark and my husband has been holding dinner for me. Please don't tell him this, but I take the very long way home, the longest way that I can figure out to get home so I can just meditate or even listen to one of my favorite podcasts. It's just me time. And I shared this with a friend, and she came back at me with the whole confession of her own, and in which nobody other than me knew about. And I wonder, there are probably a lot of ways, unspoken ways, that we have found to carve out little time and places for ourselves that really at the end, sometimes it's the only saving grace of the day. At least I got to do that, at least that grounded me. And I'm really grateful that I do that, even though, I should probably be more honest with my husband that yes, I did leave work at 8, and yes, I didn't get home 3 minutes away until 8:45. But don't ask, don't tell, we'll all be good. But I kind of like the idea of there being clandestine ways where holding space for each other, finding space for ourselves, and just having that carry us through.
How wholesome.
Oh, I also wanted to say that I have somebody close to me who is mourning the fact that she's not going to be able to see her family at the holidays. And I think, what everything Lori said times a lot in terms of what we're going to be feeling at Thanksgiving and over the December holidays. FaceTime Christmas just doesn't, it's like the best we can do, but I think there's still it's like we're mourning the loss ahead of time.
Yes, yes. But we have a choice. We can go under or we can deal with it, you know. To acknowledge it is the first step, I think.
Well, we really appreciate your insights. I know we're getting close to our time, but we really appreciate your life of service. And on behalf of all those that you brought into the world, we say thank you, but also for your witness of a centered servant um, who lives out of that reflection space. I just think that's a real gift in our world today as you lean towards empathy and unity as opposed to division and strife. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Rob. I'm better for being with each one of you. And I appreciate all your efforts. We're all on the journey together. And
Absolutely.
thank you, Tauna, for making it happen as you do so many things.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we have former speaker Greg Stumbo. He'll be with us on Election Day. I know it's felt like we have been in election season for about 25 years, but they tell us that at least maybe on